Hey, E100 readers, welcome to Unit 9. Hey, you are nearly halfway through this program. This is our next to the last unit on the Old Testament. Now, you're going to notice a big change in this unit because we're going to be moving from historical narrative, which is mostly what we've been reading, to poetry. There is lots of poetry in the Bible, and you're going to get a taste of it in this unit. We're going to be reading, first of all, from the Psalms. The Psalms we might think of as the songs of worship, which were collected for Israel's use in the temple and for their use in private devotion, as people would learn these by heart. Remember, in the ancient world, they probably didn't have many copies of these books because they were so expensive. But you would learn these songs as you worshiped in the temple and as you worshiped with others in other places, and eventually in Israel as the synagogue developed. And you would sing these, and they would become meaningful to you in the same way that worship songs are meaningful to us. Now, some of these psalms give comfort, and you're going to be reading the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd." This is maybe the best known text of the entire Bible, if certainly in the top 5, I think. You're also going to read an example of a psalm of lament. Psalm 51 is a psalm that is expressing sadness and grief, and specifically the sadness of repentance. This imagines David, after he had committed sin with Bathsheba that we read about in the previous unit, now repenting of that sin and seeking God's forgiveness and cleansing. And then in some of the Psalms, many of the Psalms are expressions of praise, just outpourings of the mind and heart in thanksgiving and gratitude and praise to God for his glory and his goodness. And the 103rd Psalm is an example of that. There are other Psalms in the Psalter, in the book of Psalms. There are Psalms that recall Israel's history. There are Psalms that impart wisdom. There's a lot of complaining in the Psalms, and I think that's great because in the Bible, God is giving you permission to complain to him. Okay, not to anybody else, but to him, okay? He's the one you complain to. So the Psalms are giving us permission to express to God whatever we feel, assuring us that when we do express ourselves, he listens and he can restore our confidence in him. And one of the things I hope you'll notice as you keep reading the Bible is how often the Psalms are quoted in the New Testament. This helps us understand how deeply embedded in people's consciousness they were and how much they help people understand the rest of the unfolding of God's story, as we see that in Jesus and the early church. Now, you'll also be reading in this unit from the Proverbs. The book of Proverbs is a collection of poems and sayings of wisdom for all kinds of circumstances, just everyday life. You know, how to deal with this problem or that problem. Teaches you a lot of skepticism about yourself and your motives, being very careful about wealth and power, learning the value of kindness and so forth. It's applied wisdom in that way. But there's also the essential foundation of Proverbs, which is that the beginning of wisdom is in knowing God. The fear of the Lord is at the beginning of wisdom. Fear not in the sense that we're afraid he'll whack us, but we are in awe of God's majesty and wisdom and power and goodness and kindness and grace that is shown to us. Now, the sayings of Proverbs have got to be understood carefully because often they kind of stand in contradiction, in seeming contradiction to each other. At one point, Proverbs says, answer a fool according to his folly. The very next Proverb says, don't answer a fool according to his folly. And you think, oh, come on, Proverbs, make up your mind. Well, it's suggesting there's a kind of balance there. There's discernment that's needed. So there's discernment that's needed in reading the book. The outcomes that are described are generalizations, not promises. Some people read this and think, if I just do what Proverbs says, everything will always turn out right. Well, no, because Proverbs also says that's not going to happen. You know, you can't really predict all of the outcomes. So think of both of these books as commentary on the history of the Old Testament. The Psalms are how people respond in various circumstances to what's going on around them. The Proverbs are lessons learned from living through events like these. And thanks be to God, he has given us these perspectives so that we can internalize them and benefit from them as we continue in our walk with God as his people. So God bless you on the journey of reading this unit.